In this video, I'm going to be replacing the spark plugs on my 2005 Cayenne S. Now, for normal cars replacing spark plugs, it's fairly easy. But for the Porsches, it can be a real pain. And this car in particular, there's a lot of plastic I got to remove to get access to them. So to start with, all the plastic right here, just around the engine, has to be removed. And then the spark plugs are buried under here. So all this has to come off. And on the opposite side, there's a fairly large bracket that needs to be removed as well. So it's a fairly lengthy process just to get access to the spark plugs. And then the replacing them is a fairly simple part. To start with, I'm just going to remove all the plastic along the outer edges of the engine compartment. On top of doing the spark plugs today, I'm also going to be replacing the air filters. So I need to remove the air filter cover, which will also give me a little more space in here to access the screw, which covers the spark plug. So I'm going to remove this cover first so I have more space. Okay, with all the plastic off, I now have access to the bolts right here, which I'm gonna undo now. There we go. Okay, now that my 20-minute detour to get my bit is done and I have it back, I can now remove the air pump. It's more like loosening the air pump. I don't actually have to remove it entirely. All right, now I'm gonna start on the opposite side and start getting the bolts out so I can remove the cover. This one is a slightly different process. I got this bracket that's in my way. And then this back one is a little bit harder to get at because of the hoses. Something to note, these top two right here take an external Torx head, number 12, and then the bottom two down here take a number 10. So if you don't have an external Torx head, which is a fairly specialty head, you're not gonna be able to get this off. Okay, now that I have everything off that's covering up the spark plugs and preventing me access to getting to them, what I need to do now is unplug the wiring from the coil pack, and then I can remove the coil pack by using another external Torx head socket on here. And then I can pull the coil pack out and actually get to the spark plug. But first, the wires. So these are kind of delicate, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna press down here on the release and then slide my small flat blade in right between. And I'm just gonna wiggle it back and forth a little so I can slide it off very carefully. I'm gonna use a bigger one. And now I gotta repeat that process on the remaining 7. Okay, now that all my wires are free, I'm gonna remove the bolt that's holding the coil pack in. And this one also requires one of the external Torx heads. Okay, I'm now set to remove the coil packs. So to do this, all you gotta do is wiggle it back and forth a little, which you don't have a lot of space to do that in, but it doesn't take too much. And then it will pull out. Okay, now what I want to do for each one at a time as I take them out is I want to inspect the coil pack and make sure that it isn't damaged anywhere. So these can get damaged over time as it wears down, and they're about $80 a piece to replace, so I don't want to have to buy all 8 of them at once if I can avoid it. So I'm just going to check each one, and if one of them is damaged, I am going to have to buy that singular one or 2, however many are, and then wait to have them arrive. But what I'm looking for is to see if there's any lines where essentially the electricity is trying to escape through the sides rather than going all the way down to the end. You are going to have a couple of lines on here with the normal seams of the plastic, which is fine, but what I'm looking for is anywhere else where there's something that shouldn't be there. And I'm not seeing anything, so I'm going to go grab my spark plug and pull out the old one and put in a new one. Okay, so there's my old spark plug, and now I'm gonna put my new one in. Okay, so you can see my new one here on the left, and this is the one I just pulled out on the right. Okay, so when I put the new one in, I'm gonna do it by hand only to start with, no wrench on the end. And the reason for that is these are steel spark plugs, and my heads are aluminum, so if it cross threads, that's going to be a big problem because the steel is going to win, and then the whole engine is going to have to essentially come out to fix it. So always start by hand and just kind of take it slow and feel it out. And then once I get it all the way down, I need to put the torque wrench on and torque them down. Okay, so the torque is fairly light. It's only 22 pounds. But when it comes to Porsche, everything gets essentially its own unique torque setting, so it's important to follow it. There we go. Okay, now I'm going to reinstall the coil. And again, this is the same one I removed. Nothing was wrong with it, so I don't need to replace it. And that's it. So at this point, I actually have already done the first one here, and I've done this one just now for you guys to see. So I have 6 more to go. I'm gonna leave this back one last because everything about it's been a real pain in the ass because there's not a lot of space in here to work. So I'm gonna knock out the other ones first, which will be easier. And then once I'm all done, I'm basically ready to put everything back together. Okay, all the spark plugs are done, so now I need to put the bolts that retain the coil packs back in. And they do have a torque setting, it's 7.5 pounds. Okay, all the coil packs have been bolted down again, so now I get to reattach the wires. Okay, so the top ones are 23 foot-pounds. So the bottoms are two-stage. They are 3.5 foot-pounds to start with, and then 7.5. All right, 3.5 pounds on these. Okay, 7.5 pounds here. All right, 44 foot-pounds for this one and this one. Okay, something I didn't mention earlier is that this one takes a kind of unique socket here, which is it's like a 12-point Torx head basically. So not many people have that. Usually they only come in 6 points, so 12 is kind of rare. So another special thing about Porsches. All right, so this is unrelated to the spark plug job, but since I had them on hand and they needed to be done, and we're just doing like a basic tune-up, I'm gonna replace the air filters with new ones. And of course, the filter covers had to come off, so it's just a good time to do it. All right, last step is to put all the plastic cover pieces back on. So we'll start with the middle one, and I'm just gonna dry fit everything into place, and then I'll come back and screw everything down. All right guys, that's it. That completes the process for doing the spark plugs on a 2005 Cayenne S. Now I'm not quite done. I still have to crawl back underneath and secure the belly pan since I dropped that socket earlier, so yay for me. But that's it for you guys, so we'll see you next time on DIY Grunt. Please click that subscribe button and give us a thumbs up if you like this video.